Alrighty, this morning, depending on the time of day or time zone you are in, it's morning, afternoon in some parts of the country. I feel like Brian Williams when I say that, Jim. But but yes, I'm joined by Jim Barker, Director of Player Personnel for the Toronto Argonauts, and it's not your first stint with the Argos and all that, but it's been quite the football journey for you. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
It's my fourth. I'm actually proud of it. So it's my fourth time with them, and what first time that sold the team, and different things happen. I've been fired a couple times, but you do your job well, and you do your what the things you're supposed to do. People will bring you back. It's so I'm actually take pride in having my fourth go round with the Toronto Argonauts.
That's awesome, and I know you've spent some time in the TV industry and that sort of thing as well. So you've been on kind of both sides of the ball, so to speak, with all that. And again, what kind of sparked your interest in getting into football? We can go back in the journey here, from 30 years ago, and that sort of
30 years ago in Canada, but actually more closer to 45. And I spent 15 years or so down in the US as a college coach. I coached every level of college football, Division 1. Back in those days, it was called Division 1, Division 1 AA, Division 2, and Division 3. And I was one of the few people that coached at every level
wow.
and enjoyed the heck out of it. I was also a college baseball coach for 8 years at a school called Pomona Pitzer Colleges. I was at Occidental College as the head baseball coach, and I coached football at both those places also. So yeah, I spent up through till 95. So I started in 78 to 95 in the US, came up here in 96 with the Alouettes.
Hmm.
Actually, 94. I came up as a guest coach in Saskatchewan. And what a great experience it was the first time I'd ever been to Canada, to go to Saskatchewan where the practice field, there was like a film. I couldn't figure out what it was, and it was bugs all over the field. Like these black bugs were everywhere. Ray Yock was the head coach, and Richie Hall was a DB coach, and Jim Daly was there, and Greg Marshall, and I was working on offense with Pat Perlis, and it was a great experience and an introduction to the CFL. And 2 years later, I got hired full time by the Alouettes when they became the Alouettes after being the Baltimore team that had won the. Well, actually, I don't know whether they had won it or lost it that year before they came, but they came from Baltimore to Montreal, so we took that over. Don Matthews had left Baltimore, gone to Toronto
Hmm.
to be with Doug Flutie. And the guy that got the head coaching job was Don's defensive coordinator, a guy named Bob Price. And he and I had cross paths at University of Nevada, Reno, back in my one double A years there. So uh, he asked me to come up, and there was back in those days we had two coaches on offense. It was myself and a guy named Peter Voss coached on offense, and it was a great experience. I loved it.
Hmm.
We lost in the Eastern Final to Toronto with Flutie, and they went on and won the Grey Cup in '96. And we got to the office Monday, and Jim Pop said, "Well, the owner doesn't want to do this anymore, so there's no more team." And so I'm there with my kids, and they're in school, and they just folded the team. So that was kind of my first introduction to the CFL, and I was expecting it, so it was not a
Right.
huge deal. And so it was through December and January, and then Don Matthews, they had won the Grey Cup, and Charlie Carpenter and Adam Rita went to BC off that team. So he called me about coming in as his offensive line coach and co-coordinator with John Jenkins in '97. So that was, so I went from Montreal to Toronto, and that was my first venture in Toronto. I
Hmm.
was there in '97 with Doug, which was an amazing experience, the greatest player I've ever been around. Just everybody around him was better because he was Doug. He just the way he was, his whole. I mean, this is the kind of mentality Doug Flutie had, and I didn't know him well. Um, he puts a during training camp, he puts a ping pong table in the locker room. I said, Doug, God, what a great thing to do for these guys to, because I didn't do it for them. They're all beaking off about how good they are, so I need to kick their ass. So I put the ping pong table in there. That's Doug Flutie. That's what he was about. And he just he came out one day and we're testing young guys, in different tests. And one of the tests is a short shuttle.
Mhm.
And if you do under 4.0, that's really cooking in the short shuttle. So he says, "What's the best time?" I said, "We actually had a 3.96." He says, "Okay, let me see what I can do." He hadn't warmed up anything. He gets out there and he rips off a 3.88. It was just like, what? That was Doug Flutie. He just did everything a little bit better than everybody else. And so that was a great experience to get to work with him in 97. And then Don left to go to Edmonton. Don Matthews left to go to Edmonton in 99, and they named me the head coach. So I'd been in the league for 2 years, became the head coach in Toronto, and the end of the year we were 9-9, and I think we won our playoff. I can't remember. Anyway, um, they sold the team, and I never got fired that first time. So I can't really say I got fired. I just went to the office one day and my key didn't work anymore. And so I called the league office because we didn't have an owner that was kind of in transition.
Mhm.
I said, "Hey, my key's not working." And they said, "Oh, we should have called you. Yeah, the deal closed over the weekend and you weren't part of it." So that was that was my first foray in here, and um but I've loved the CFL. I've loved everything it's brought. And I've learned so much about just about people. I've had every job you can have, from an assistant coach to a coordinator to like an offensive line coach, a quarterback coach, um, a head coach, then a general manager. I've been a senior vice president. So I've gotten a chance to do everything. And I got a chance to do TV the last few years. But when you get to my age and the first time you do it is you're that old, you're on your way out before you even get started. So I think 3 years, I have a face for radio, not television. So after 3 years, they kind of phased me out. And I was just fortunate. Pinball brought me back here to run the personnel office, and it's been fantastic. I'm getting to do what I love doing. Don't tell them, but I would do this for free. It's just, I'm having a ball.
Well, and again, seeing you talk on TSN, and I just understand that passion that you have. Like you bring that enthusiasm, and I can't say that about necessarily everybody. And again, no particular network. It's just you've lived and you breathed it, and you talk about the Saskatchewan days. I was living there during that time, and I remember when Michael Saunders came out to our
Yeah,
school and talked, and the late Gerald Bayless now, and uh,
yeah. Well,
I,
Suter was a safety on that team.
yes.
Dave Ridgway was the kicker,
Hmm.
and Warren Jones was our quarterback, and Ray Elgard was in his last years. And I got to tell you, those guys understood the CFL. They gave me a view of the CFL. It was just, I mean, just fantastic people, and understood the importance of it. And yet, I don't know, it was such a special experience to be able to be a guest coach with that group of coaches. Um, Mike McCagnon, who ended up becoming the GM of the Jets, he was the coffee guy. He'd go get coffee for everybody. He was just a starting out in the business in personnel.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just Al Ford was there. It was just a great experience for me. And Saskatchewan is, I've never gotten a chance to coach there or to manage to do anything there, but it's always been special because it was my first ever venture into Canada, was into Regina for training camp.
And so you were just in the training camp, and then you kind of you
Yeah,
went
I was a guest coach, so
guest coach.
I was helping. Pat Perlis was the offensive line coach, and he asked
Mhm.
me to come up and help him. We had been working camps together, and he asked me to come up. That was 94. And they were actually, I was living down in Las Vegas, and they had a game there. It was 108 degrees at kickoff against the Riders. It was Las Vegas, and Anthony Calvillo was the quarterback for them. So yeah, I go back quite a ways in this league, and it was like I said, that experience, the CFL became something that was important to me, and I've had chances to move, and I left for 1 year to be in the XFL, right after they sold the team, the Argos. I got a chance to go to the original XFL with Vince McMahon and The Rock, and but back when it was in its infant stages, and they didn't know what they wanted to be back then, so it made it exciting. I mean, every player in the league got paid the same, except quarterbacks got 5,000 more and kickers got 5,000 less. It was like, and then if you won the game, you got a win bonus. So you made, I think it was like $4,500 win bonus every game you won. Everybody on the team got a win, and the coaches, we all got win bonuses. The championship game was $1 million winner take all, and we're playing San Francisco. We played San Francisco. I was with LA. We played San Francisco and beat them pretty good. And it
Mhm.
was like, we all made, I think, 29,000 dollars. It was $1 million for everybody to split up evenly. And, it just, what a great experience. So I do have an XFL ring. Vince McMahon came the week of the game, said, "You guys have no idea. This is all about the ring. You guys are going to, the ring's going to be better than a Super Bowl ring." And then they end up folding the league, and the rings we got look like they're out of a Cracker Jack box, but it was okay. And that's but but I've stayed in Canada. I then went back to Montreal, won the Grey Cup with Don and Anthony Calvillo in his first year winning the MVP, and kind of launched me into being a head coach again. And here we are today, a
Yeah.
lot of years later.
Most definitely, when you first bring up the XFL, the name "He Hate Me" comes up, and
Yeah.
then as you're talking Vince McMahon, I mean, kind of treating it like a Survivor Series match and that sort of thing. And well, we don't want to bring.
I'll tell you a funny story. They didn't know what they wanted the league to be. They wanted it to be like wrestling. So
Mhm.
I got Tommy Maddox as our quarterback, and he's kind of the star of the league, and he's a really good player and playing well. And I think it was around week 4 they came to him about, "Hey, we're going to do this whole scenario with you and a cheerleader." And he said, "I'm not doing that." He said, "I've got kids in school. This isn't wrestling. This is football." So I think after that kind of failed, it kind of evolved into being more football and less of wrestling version of football. And again, I don't know what the original plan. I'm not sure they knew exactly what it was going to be, but it was an exciting time and it was a blast. I mean, it was just absolutely fun to coach in a league where players are motivated to win. I mean, you win, you make more money. You don't win, everybody makes the same.
That's right.
And there's something special about that, about being able to coach in that environment. So yeah, the XFL was a great experience. I'm glad I got a chance to do it. But then I came back to the CFL, and I've been in the CFL ever since.
Yeah, so I mean, again, yeah, with the XFL there again, just to not belabor and not to be too redundant with it, but it was like wrestling was at its highest, with Stone Cold Steve Austin. They thought they would kind of
Yes.
build off that, and then it didn't really happen. And they're trying again, and there's all these other leagues that are happening and that sort of thing. But it's crazy that the CFL has been around for over 100 years. I mean, honestly, and guys like yourself with the journey, like it goes like that, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, it's hard to believe. I've been in the league longer than any. Well, Huff has actually been in longer, but he took a big hiatus to go and coach in the NFL and
Yes.
all those things. And now he's here with me,
Hmm.
and it's kind of fun to be able to, I was actually the general manager when we brought him. He came back in 2008. I had been there 3 years as a GM. He wanted to come up as a head coach and GM, and certainly with his background and things. So he did that, and I bumped up to senior vice president, did the same things,
Right.
and helped him with putting his first staff together. And so he and I have a history together. We won the Grey Cup that first year, and I was there for one more year. Then I went to Toronto and went back as the head coach and the GM, and the thought I could do everything. But see, I learned GMing different. Most guys that are head coach GM, they've been a coach and then they make them GM so they can either pay them more money, give them more power, whatever. John Matthews told me, Jim, don't do that. Either be a head coach or a GM, but it's important that the head coach have that autonomy from the front office.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really get that until I did it. So I was the head coach and GM in 2010. Adam Rita was still there, and he might have had the title in 2010. But I won Coach of the Year. Then in 2011, I had the title head coach and GM, and I just could not do it. I learned GMing differently. For 5 years in Calgary, all I did was GM. I was the only person there in 2005 when John Frazani and Ted Hellard and that whole Dave Sapungis, they bought the team in 2005. And Frazani came up and said, "Hey, Jim, can you be the GM?" I had stayed in town. My daughter was undergoing some things, and so I stayed in Calgary for that 2004 season when Matt took it over. Matt Dunnigan took it over, and they had another, a little worse year. We won 5 games, they won 4 games, and then Frazani and his crew came in and bought the team from Michael Federick, who bought it so his kid could play quarterback, which again, it was a stupid thing for me to think that I was going to go and replace Wally Buono, who left because it was such a dire, horrible situation. And I go in there as, an ego, with an ego thinking I can handle it. And I don't know that anybody could have handled it. But so I got fired after I cut his son at the end of the season.
I
And so
I I remember some of the, yeah, I remember this.
yeah, then 2 days before Christmas, he fired me. When my mother left to come visit me, or my family, she left LA. I had a job. This was 2 days before Christmas. By the time she landed, I didn't have a job. So I picked her up at the airport. I said, "Mom, we got to go clean my office out." And there was pictures in the Calgary Sun of her helping me carry out stuff out of the office. Just classic, only in the CFL kinds of stuff. So yeah, but I stayed in town to be with my daughter, and then in 2005, Berzani came up. We had lunch, and he said, "Jim, can you be the GM?" And I had never done it. I'd never scouted, or I mean, you watch film and I said, absolutely, I can do that. So he gave me a wad of cash. I felt like I was in the mafia. He gave me a wad of cash and he says, okay, I want you to go down and get us some players. We're going to hire Tom Higgins as the head coach. You're going to get all the players and we'll get rolling from here. And I mean, they had I won 5 games and then they won 4 games the second year. And that first year we were there, we were 11-7 and in the playoffs. We signed Henry Burris was the first guy we signed, and uh, kind of got it going in the right direction anyway. So it was but I dedicated myself to being a GM. I did all the scouting. I did everything that I ask guys to do now. I've done it. I was by myself. I had nobody there helping me. I did the whole thing myself because I didn't know. And so I went out and did that for 2005. Then in 2006, hired Brendan Mahoney, who's still there in Calgary as a Canadian scout. He had been a player, had just been released by Toronto, I think. And so I hired him. as a young guy. Like I say, he's still there. Then the following year, I hired Murphy as a US guy, John Murphy, and he was basically just based in the US. He didn't come up, and thing. So I kind of started, but I learned what you have to do as a GM. And when I went to Toronto and I thought, okay, I think I can do both. And after that first year, even though Adam was there, it was still, I was seeing this is going to be really difficult for me. In 2011, it was a really tough year. I just couldn't do it.
Hmm.
And, I had good help and things, but it was too much. So I fired myself as the coach in 2011 and I hired Scott Milanovich. And then in 2012, we won the Grey Cup. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was again, when we took over in 2008 and 9, I think they won 3 games in each year. I mean, they were real bad. Like they were the worst team in the league. And then in 10, won 11 games, and I won the CFL Coach of the Year. And then in 11, like I say, trying to do everything. Adam left, and it was too much. And so like I say, I fixed it and I fired myself, brought Scott in, won the Grey Cup the first year that he got there. And I don't think I was ever a great head coach. It wasn't what I enjoyed the most. I mean, I love finding players and I love, training young coaches and young scouts and that's kind of what I started to do in Toronto. I could then focus on that. And 4 of the youngsters that I hired, Canadian guys in personnel in Toronto, they had never been anywhere else. Chris Rossetti was the first one. He gave up his senior year playing quarterback at Guelph and worked for me for nothing. Back in those days, you could work for nothing. The next year, I paid him like 25,000, and then his third year, he was getting pretty good, so he got maybe double that. And then in the fourth year, he was at that level, and so I actually offered him 6 figures to stay, and he went for half of that, took a job in Miami with the Dolphins. He had met people, and I put him in position where they could meet people, and
Hmm.
he did a great job of networking and whatever. So he went to the Dolphins, was there for 7 years. He's now the director of pro scouting with the New York Giants. Then I replaced him with a guy also from Guelph, Curtis Ruckavina, who came in. He spent 2 years. Then he got hired by the Bills. Same thing. He's a pro scout with Buffalo. Vince Magri, back in 12 or 13, I had hired as our video guy, and he came in and kind of evolved his way. Every year, he would put together our cut-ups for the Canadian draft. Well, Vince worked his way into being a front office guy, and I was real proud of his movement. He got out of the video, and we ended up hiring his brother as the video guy in Toronto. But Vince is now a pro scout in Buffalo, also with the Bills. And then the last one, Matt Houston, he'd come over every summer from Western University. He'd work as an intern for the summers, and then he would come on the weekends when he wasn't in school. So for 4 years he was with us. He then got a full-time job with the Tiger Cats. One of our guys here got a job with Tiger, took him there, and then went down to the University of Florida to get a master's degree, got involved in NIL there when it first started about 6 years ago. And Matt last week was named a full-time pro college scout with the New York Jets. So I've got 4 guys now in the NFL that came through, worked with, and I love that. I've got 2 new guys this year that I brought in, 25 years old, one from Guelph, one from Queens,
Yeah.
and they bust their rear ends, and hopefully they can turn this into what they want it to be. Maybe it's being great in this league. That's what
Hmm.
I hope they stay in this league, and because this league's got so much to offer. But if that's where they end up, then they end up in that league. So that's, again, to me, that's what I'm proud of. I'm proud of being able to bring Canadians in and let them grow and let them become, they were all of them were better than I was and than I ever was. They just That's the key to the whole thing is you hire people better than you are, smarter than you are, and then eventually, I think we were able to hold on and we won the Grey Cup in 12. I got fired in 17. They won the Grey Cup that year, but that
Yeah.
was, I'd been there. I was there till February when I got fired. So they won it in 17, and then I got fired. I was gone, and then I came back in 22 as a consultant. We won the Grey Cup, and then I went to TV. And consultant was a tough job for me. It was, I look at a consultant and Steve, it's like they take you're like a GA, like you're just starting out, but you got a bunch of gray hair. And they want to hear what you have to say, but they really don't care because they're going to do what they want.
Right.
And it was just a real difficult job for me. So I went and
Mm.
did TV, did that for 3 years. And then, like I say, I think they kind of slowly moved me to the door. And so I got the message and Pinball called, gave me the opportunity to come back here. And I jumped all over it. He and Keith Pelly. Keith's been a friend for a long time, so I'm just so excited to be here and hopefully building this back up and getting the personnel back. They had a down year last year. Losing their quarterback obviously was a big, big part of that. But try to get this going in the right way and get some young guys growing in the thing, and then hopefully 10 years from now, those young guys are running one's running the Argos and one's running some other team.
Most definitely, right? And you talk about, that's quite the legacy to leave behind or to have. The ecosystems, the coaching trees, if you will. Everybody talks about the Andy Reid coaching tree or the Bill Walsh coaching tree, but like you got those guys into those positions, you were part of that journey for them, right? And that's
Yeah, I have some other you guys. Spencer Zimmerman is number two behind Ed Hervey in Edmonton. Ted Govaya that just passed away in Hamilton. I gave him his first personnel job. He was a coach, and he coached for me in 2011. And then when Scott came in, he didn't really have a spot for Ted, so I put him on in personnel, and he flourished in that area, and obviously became the general manager of his hometown team, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, was doing a great job and then came down with cancer. And, it's was a sad story. But, another guy that I feel like I was able to help along the path. And, just watching guys in our league that, Alex Russell is in Hamilton now. And he's a guy that was with us in 22 and just a bright young guy, and we used to sit and watch film for hours into the night, and he gets it. So it's a great battle now when we battle Hamilton because I get to go. I look at it as me against Alex. I don't. I mean, Milanovic is the coach there, and
hmm
Orlando Steinauer that I gave his first coaching job to. Both he and O'Shea back in 2010. I got hired late in 2010, so I had to hire guys without experience. I hired Mike O'Shea and Orlando Steinauer, and two guys that have gone on and done very, very well for themselves. So. I've been fortunate to surround myself with smarter people and better at their jobs than I am.
Yeah, because Winnipeg, they hired O'Shea, this 43-year-old whippersnapper coming here. Okay, see, and now he's made Winnipeg his home, and everybody thought he was going to go to another place. So just kind of leave that to everyone's imagination, and he lands up signing a 3-year contract. Um, and so, yeah, it's I kind of call the Bombers the Pittsburgh Steelers of they've had a long coach for a long time, right? So
Yep.
it's quite something with that stability. I got to ask you with the Argos, what do you remember about the Winnipeg Toronto game in late October?
Which win?
That was in Winnipeg on the Nigel Williams play, the
The
tip pass from the
Nigel
DB.
Williams play. I just saw Nigel. He's coaching at Windsor now.
Okay.
I don't recall.
Yeah, so it was like Kerwin Bell goes back. and he heaves the ball, and the defensive back tips the ball, and it goes right into Nigel Williams' hands, and he's into the end zone. My buddy takes me and he shakes me and he like rips my like my zipper, and we all flood the field. This is when you could go on the field, and then after 9/11, that changed. And
Wow.
yeah, the yard markers they got put to Oak Bank, and yeah, it was just wild times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't recall that play. There's been
Okay.
so many
Yes.
different unbelievable things that have happened. But like I say, I just saw Nigel 2 weeks ago. He's
Okay.
coaching at Windsor. He was at the East-West game coaching that, and just watching these guys, grow and become,
Mhm.
coaches and helping, giving back. And that's what the CFL is all about. That's why I love this league and why it's better suited for me than anything I had down south.
I mean, you talk about the relationship with Huffnagel back in 2008. Everybody knows about that speech in the locker room prior. We got him where we want him, right? And you guys go out and you win that game, and um, you know, because Montreal's playing at home, the chips are kind of all against you, so to speak, and you land up winning, and it's a fantastic time. But those, I don't know what it is with speeches in locker rooms. They're just they resonate.
And you have to know Huff. He's so humble. He doesn't talk a lot, but when he talks, those words, we've got him right where we want him. That was that would just kind of grab the moment. And Huff is one of those guys that I worked for Don Matthews, who was kind of a boisterous and out there. He was front and center. Huff's kind of just the opposite of that.
Hmm.
But when he speaks, to me, I mean, Don Matthews was a genius. He took really difficult concepts and made them easy. I mean, I was his offensive coordinator his last two Grey Cups, and he taught me more about the game than anybody else. But when it came to talking football, he was simple, he was concise, he was to the point. And that's Huff. Huff treats everything that way. He's simple, he's to the point. He's not going to beat around the bush and give you 18 different things, but he understands it at a level that not many people do. And that I appreciate people like that, that you can't get that type of knowledge without experience.
Hmm.
And it just, I've been around, I can say that because I've been around a long time and I've seen a lot of brilliant Mike O'Shea. I saw him come into the league as a bright, wanting to learn, energetic, all those things that it takes.
Hmm.
But now he's a much different coach than he ever was back then. I mean, he was always quiet, he was always concise. I could see a lot of similarities between him and the great ones I was around at a young age, but he wasn't at that point then. I think he's at that point now
Yeah.
where the game is, when he talks about it, he talks in very simple terms because the game is simplified to him in his mind. Where when he first started coaching, that wasn't the case. And watching that evolution through the years has been pretty fun.
Yeah, I was at training camp last week, and I was just observing him. He kind of lets the coordinators do their thing. He's observing, he's pointing out some stuff. But yeah, I totally. I mean, you know him better than me. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying there. It's different, and again, winning helps. Winning Grey Cups helps, and obviously, experience helps. Jim, some of the mentors, role models in your life, and I know you've probably mentioned a few here without me even asking this question prior, but who would you say some of your role models and
Well,
mentors?
the number one mentor that I've had in professional sports was Don Matthews, without question. Everything he did. I think when I first got there, he probably had about 10, 11 things through training camp that he'd say, I said, that can't be right. And we would do it his way. And 100% of the time he turned out right, I turned out wrong. And it's just it kind of got me looking at there is a lot to that experience. And so he was a mentor, taught me the whole everything about, whether it's the relationship of the head coach in the locker room and how he sometimes uses the GM. Like,
Hmm.
man, I tried to get you that contract, even though he's the one who did it, but he made a way, he had a way of making it believe it's us and them, and I'm one of you. And so he always was a part of the team, the players. They always felt like Don has my back. And I think that there's a magic to that. That again, he was never a head coach, general manager, yet he always, every time I was with him, he always made all the calls. It
Hmm.
was his decision on who was going to be wherever. And we have a young guy in the league now, Ryan Dinwiddie, who is going down the same path in terms of being at from a coaching standpoint, he's put himself in a position that Mike O'Shea, both those guys have put themselves in position that they don't ever have to be GMs. They're going to get paid all the money they want as a coach. And that's what
Hmm.
Don said. He said, once you make it as a coach, you don't need to, you don't need that GM job. You need to use that GM job. You need to be able to do the things you have to do, but you don't need the title and you don't want the title. And he always told me that. And it, again, one of those things he said, I said, I don't know. I see a lot of them that are successful. Till I did it, I didn't really get it. Once I did it, he was right again. And like I say, Dinwiddie Ryan just left. I have a ton of respect for Ryan. He's a fantastic football coach. He motivates players. He gets all of it. Um, and I wish him the best of success. But I told him that exact same stuff about Don, that Ryan is at a point he doesn't need to be the head coach and GM. And maybe you don't want that. And, so it'll be interesting to see how he does in Ottawa this year, how that whole thing goes. He has Sean Burke there to help him, and Sean's now moved up to a senior vice president role. So, it'll be interesting to watch a young guy who I look at as a young potential Don Matthews type, just the way I look at Osh
Yeah.
as young. Osh is different in that Don would have to move on about every 4, 5, 6. He didn't last much longer than that. Where Osh is totally different because he's going to do it his way, and he's got the support in Winnipeg where Wade Miller and Kyle
Hmm.
Walters, those guys take care of. They understand Osh and get him what he needs so that he can stay steady in his approach. So it's interesting to watch these young guys now evolving into, like I say, he was the number one mentor for me was Don. I think Ron Lancaster was one also. When
Hmm.
I got the head coaching job in Toronto back in 10, I used to meet Ronnie down in Burlington. We'd meet at a little place, and
Nice.
he would tell me things that I was doing that I maybe needed to think about. And he just had such a command of people.
Hmm.
And again, another one that just I can't tell you how important he was to my development as a coach and as a professional in this business.
Wow, that is yeah, wow. It's quite something, right? The influence all these years later, you think about the influence they have and on people's lives. And I mean Don Matthews, Ron Lancaster, I mean legends in their own right. Matthews didn't last too long in Saskatchewan, but I think I still got the poster of him in the 93 team, what have you. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
there was some other great. I mean, Ray Yock was a guy that a longtime coach. He went to the Hall of Fame, thank goodness, and um, just a brilliant man. He was my first offensive coordinator when I got the head coaching job in '99 because I had been with him he was the head coach when I went to Saskatchewan.
Hmm.
And again, brilliant in his own methodology. Before I came up here, I worked for a guy named Vic Rowan. He was at San Francisco State, I think 35 or 40 years. And when I was there, Mike Holmgren was there, who went on to win Super Bowls with the Seahawks and with the Packers. And then Andy Reid was there, who's now the head coach of the Chiefs.
Yes.
Dirk Cutter, who was the head coach of the Falcons. Oh, we all went through there the same period of time in the early 80s at San Francisco State for a guy named Vic Rowan. So, he was just an interesting guy from a schematic standpoint, from understanding X's and O's. And he would go visit Johnny Majors and come back and say, okay, this is what we're going to run this year. And we would have a whole new offense or a whole new D. And it was the beauty of him. And I didn't understand it at the time. Then he'd go visit, somebody else somewhere and come back. Okay, this is what we're doing. And it was like I learned so many different things from him during my time at San Francisco State. So from a schematic standpoint, it would be Vic Rowan. So
Mm.
I've just been blessed to be around these old guys, and now I'm one, but around these old guys that were geniuses in schematics, were geniuses in handling people, were geniuses in the way things are done. And I was just blessed to have those experiences and understand the value that those guys had.
Well, yeah, you look at Holmgren, right? He brought Andy Reid to Green Bay as the quarterbacks coach. He went to Philadelphia, and, the late Jim Johnson, and there's John Harbaugh
Well,
coming.
when Andy moved from tight ends to quarterbacks, Mike called me about potentially going to replace him. And I had just been named the head coach in Toronto in 1999. And I said, I can't do it. I just can't. I can't. This is, my mother, she got upset with me when I told her I was changing my major from business to athletic administration. And I said, no, Mom, I'm going to make it. Okay. So I flew her up for my press conference, and it was at the old Sky Dome, and it was a big thing. And 2 weeks later, Mike calls me, and Steve Mariucci's leaving, going to San Francisco. I'm going to move Andy. Do you have an interest in, being the tight end coach? And he ended up hiring Mike Sherman, who ended up in our league. He ended up
Yes.
the head coach there.
Yeah.
So that it's just that kind of business. I just felt like staying in Canada. In 97, when I went with Flutie, I got offered the offensive coordinator job at the University of Virginia for double the money. But the opportunity to work with Don Matthews and Flutie, I couldn't pass that up. So I turned it down. And again, I wouldn't give up my CFL experience for it's not about money. I never did anything I did it based on the experiences I would have. And I look back now, and it's been a
Mm.
spectacular run. I can't I'm the happiest guy in the world. I'm doing something I love doing, and I'm going to turn 70 this year. So I'm very fortunate.
August 25th, right?
Yes.
Okay. I try to do my research.
Yeah, but you couldn't do the math on it. That's too
That's true.
1956. Oh my gosh, how old is this guy?
They call me the new old guy at work. I don't know. I'm 47 on Friday, so.
There you go.
Wow, this is very insightful. I really do appreciate you, kind of letting us into your world here, Jim. This has been fantastic. I know you're a
I appreciate
busy
the
guy,
offer.
so I always
Yeah,
taking
I
time.
appreciate the opportunity to get to share with people some of, the great things about this country and this league, and they can blast the league all it does. I just, like I say, I love the league. There's things that happen that, that anger you, that whatever, but it's still the essence of what the CFL is all about. Hasn't changed since I came in 94. And they had just done a telethon in Saskatchewan, and it was that was just part of it. And then I come up in 96, and the owner decides he's not going to do it anymore. So I'm up here with my kid, they're in school, and I have no job. And those are just, that's all, it's all part of the beauty of what I've gotten to get up here, and I'm so grateful. I'm a Canadian citizen now,
Hmm.
and like I say, this it's I'm just blessed to have all the fans, people like you, people that are watching this,
Yeah.
that I have to thank for making this just such a special experience.
No, no doubt, right? And it is, whether people like the CFL or not, it is part of the Canadian heritage, part of tradition, part of our culture. And whether it's the road trips we take with our kids and take the picture at the Saskatchewan sign, going to Labor Day Classic, or meet and greets with players, coaches, etc. I mean, the names you have brought up here, I mean, they're legends in their own right who have made the CFL what they are. So I got to ask you, how do you see as we close off here? Do you like the future for the CFL?
You know what? It's interesting. I think that Stu Johnson's a very, very bright guy. I think people jump to conclusions about losing. It bothers me that we're moving the goalpost back. I can't lie.
Hmm.
And I've said that to people at the league. That bothers me.
Yeah.
I love missing a field goal and having to run it out, and I just that to me is a part of it. But the reasons they're doing the things they're doing is to make the league stronger, maybe worldwide. Randy Ambrosi tried the global thing. Having the global players has been great. But what will really make it big is getting people playing the Canadian game. Our game is so much more to what the Europeans know in terms of rugby and soccer, and we're very much tied to that. I mean, the game started with 15 players on each side and three downs, but everybody could be moving and guys were getting killed. And so Teddy Roosevelt put a stop to it. So they said, nope, five guys on the line, and we're going to go to four downs. We're going to shrink the field, only put 11 players so we don't have all that problem. Well, the Canadians came back to McGill. They said, well, we're staying with 12. We'll go with 12 players. We'll take the number of players down, but we're staying with a 65-yard wide field, which is the same as rugby and soccer and all those things. So again, the fact that they're making it smaller, the field smaller, why are they doing that? Well, I think it's probably to increase the potential for expansion. And if you expand and you get people playing our game in Europe,
Yeah.
it'll become their game.
Yeah.
We're so tied to England, and there's no reason that can't happen. So I'm hoping that that's the future. I don't know. They, I really don't. I don't ask, and I don't know. So anything I say is not coming from a point of somebody who has been in secret high level meetings. It's coming from someone who is a fan.
Yes.
And I am a fan, even
Yeah.
though I work in this league. I am a fan of this. So I'm hoping that that's the end result is that eventually maybe they have a division in England
Yeah.
and they, have four teams in England and four teams throughout Europe. So they have that branch, and then they have the Canadian Football League branch and maybe a couple teams in the US. And we play a Canadian Football League. I mean, it's the greatest three down football in the world.
It is.
We're not the NFL.
No, we're
And
not.
that's what people need to understand. This is the greatest three down football. We are played by different athletes than play the other game. And that game is marketed great and they do all that stuff great. But in terms of entertainment value, the Canadian Football League is second to none.
Yeah.
My kids grew up in the American game. I was a college coach all those years. And then when they got to high school, we came to Canada. They both live in Las Vegas now, and one of my daughters works at the Bellagio as a pit boss, and she's always talking about she has a lot of people come in from from Alberta, from Saskatchewan. They come into Las Vegas, and she can talk CFL football with them because she would much rather watch a Canadian Football League game than an NFL game. It's just a much more exciting game, and so embrace what we have. Understand that people aren't making decisions to hurt the game. They're trying to make it even better and no more well known throughout the world. And if that can happen, in the next 50 years, then that's fantastic because the world deserves
Yeah.
to understand how great this three down football is.
I think that, yeah, again, very, very well said. You talk, again, I remember games, 20, the West Final in 2019. I always say it was one of the greatest games I've ever witnessed in my life. I mean, you can look it up on the internet. Smith Relis's bomber victory in enemy
Yeah,
territory. Fajardo hits the goalpost. It was low scoring. The goalpost wouldn't have put back. It was fun. It was back and forth, special teams tackles, etc.
yeah.
And I have
Then
been
I
to
was
it. Yeah.
coaching in Hamilton and we got beat by Winnipeg that year in 2019.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
We were heavy favorites.
Yeah, and I'll
People
be
thought we
honest,
were going to win.
I we were away that weekend, so I'm in Regina that week, the week before watching the game, and then I was
Yeah,
with my in-laws in Grand Forks. So I'm like, man, we got to make it back for the game. Hope the roads are okay. So we get back, and yeah, watching that there, and yeah, I mean, ending that drought, and I mean, one drought was going
yeah,
to end.
yeah. No, you're right. You're
Sorry to bring
right.
up the bad memories.
And that's the great thing about everybody has memories of games like that.
Hmm.
I have a memory of Montreal where I'm playing. Mark Trestman's team was great, and I'm new head coach here, and we have one of those games where we kick the ball in at the end of the game. They miss a field goal, and we kick it out, and then they kick it back in, and it was just who gets to do that if you've never
Yeah.
experienced the Canadian foot? That's what I hope we don't lose because it's memories like that that people still come up and talk to me about.
Yeah, and I remember being at a Bomber game years and years ago. There was these four guys from Denver, and they were like observing it. They were asking questions. It was very, yeah, exactly. You don't want to lose the flavor. Just don't take away the width. That's all I
Correct.
ask.
I agree. I agree. And I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think the motions, all those things are going to stay the same. Again, they want more scoring. They don't want but I don't want it to turn into arena football. And some of the new rules I think that they think will increase scoring, I think will hurt scoring. So we'll see. Moving the goalpost back is a big one
Yeah,
because now people are going to be starting a lot of times inside the 20. And now it's like you always start on the 40 and you're close to scoring territory. But now people are going to be going for it
yeah,
because a ball on the 20-yard line, so you're kicking from say the 27, that's really a 42-yard field goal. So, or the 30-yard line is you're kicking now from the 37, you're talking about a 52-yard field goal. So teams are going to go for it there, not get it. So the other team's going to start farther to go so I think it's going to hurt scoring a little bit. We'll find out.
yeah,
Like I said, they didn't make these rules to make the game more boring. They made it to make it more exciting. They study this stuff. I don't. And so, like I say, it's great to have an opinion and it's great. I mean, if they're talking about the CFL, that's all that matters because this is the greatest three down football in the world.
Mhm. Well, it's definitely got a lot of people talking on chat boards, and it amazes me because they can't sell. Attendance is kind of what it is. The population of Canada keeps going, and yeah, people, they get online. They could be a keyboard warrior. So, that's in the day and age of social media. And I also say that expansion, if they do it, will look a lot different than it did 30 years ago. Everything does,
Correct.
right? We had Microsoft 95 30 years
You're
ago.
right. You're right.
We didn't have, yeah, it's just different. Like we could go to Fargo, we could go to Bismarck, Aberdeen.
I don't
I'll,
know
I'll try
about
to
that.
just ding ding. I mean, the NFL never did this international stuff 30 years ago, and so like the Jacksonville Jaguars owner he apparently owns one of the stadiums. Okay, put it there, grow that fan base. Why wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
So
Did a lot of the premier teams in England, those stadiums sit vacant from May, the end of May, the Premier League's over until September. So what would be bad about a CFL team playing where Chelsea plays?
Right.
What would be wrong with that? It would be a exciting thing.
Yeah.
And again, those are the kinds of things I dream about that maybe someday that will happen. And, the commissioner has his way of going about it. And, God bless him. I hope it all pans out. So I know this. There's nobody who wants it to pan out more than Stu Johnston. So, people who say he's got to go, that's not correct. He needs to do what he thinks is right, and been on he's been on both sides of things. So it'll be very interesting to see the direction the league goes in the next 5 years.
Well, that's exactly it, right? We live in a day and age where we want change, but then when change happens, well, what are you doing? What are you rocking the boat? We had guys like a Tom Wright who came from Adidas, Mark
Right.
Bohan, but it's like, well, what do you want him to do? Like he has to do something. So
Well, the
exactly.
biggest thing he has to do is grow the values of the franchises.
Yes.
I mean, that's the goal. And the only way you do that is get eyeballs on your league. And the way you get eyeballs on your league is by expanding with whole streaming and DAZN and all these companies that are paying huge amounts of money for sport to put sport on television or on computer or whatever it is. I don't even understand it, Steve, but it's happening. That's all I know. All I know is there's a lot of money for a lot of stuff that, you know, I wouldn't want to watch. I would much rather watch CFL than watch some of the things that are put on. But that's the way of the world today.
Yep. That's exactly it. So I think it's I'm not gonna say it's a nervous, exciting time. I think it is genuinely an exciting time for the league and what it is because you know what? Like without that expansion, the eyeballs, where will the CFL be in 5 years? So, I say, let's go. I mean, I've seen where the Argos are going to be playing because of the World Cup, the stands. I mean, don't take down the stands after the World Cup's over. Keep them there. You know, just say it. I mean, I think it's a great spot. I've been to Toronto a few times. I think you guys could really build off something like that. Just saying.
That's out of my realm.
Yeah.
All I know is I'm out in Guelph for the next 3 months, and we're going to do something never done before and play all of everything out of here. So we'll be playing home game in Saskatchewan, a
Yes.
home game in Winnipeg,
July
a
10th.
home game in Hamilton.
Yes.
So it's going to be a very interesting experiment to see how it works. Brand new coaching staff,
Mhm.
brand new personnel staff, and that's what makes the Argos exciting
Yeah,
this year.
definitely. Hey, well, I have season tickets, Jim, to the Bombers. So when you guys are in town,
July 10th,
July 10th, yes, I'll try
10th.
to meet up. I know my kids like the bouncy councils, but we'll see what we can do.
Very good.
But this has been awesome, Jim. Again, thanks for taking the time and God
Thank you, Steve.
bless.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Take care.
Okay.